It's an amazing Monday morning, of course, the 24th day of April 2023. It's still holidays for my name. It's Janice Cobham. Thank you so much for being a part of our show this morning.
Good morning, Africa. Good morning, Nigeria. Good morning, Akwa Ibom State. Of course, still in the spirit of the Ramadan. Happy celebrations to all our Muslim faithfuls. My name is Uyai. Of course, one way for you to be a part of the community and also make your contribution to this conversation is like, share, comment across all the social media platforms, all of which you can find at SpectrumTv.ng. In the course of the program, would also display our phone lines on the screen. Please feel free to call us, send us.
Yeah, it's a Monday morning, and before we came on air, you were talking about how essential worker you are. Of course, the essential workers, they use that to, coax us into coming to work, but we don't have a choice. If you ask me, the people are very, very important, and we need to give information to the people. So that's why we are here. That's what makes us essential. No harm
on the other end, literally. I remember, one of our guests on Saturday was saying it takes literal passion. Apart from being trained, you have to have the passion for the job, or else it just knocks you out. The rigorous routine can actually get to you. But I mean, thank God we have the passion. Share your time with you, and let's talk about Nigeria. Like Janice would say, the country that we absolutely, absolutely love.
Yeah, definitely. So many things have been happening across the weekend, but maybe I should even come from a lighter note before we even begin to go to, very serious conversations this morning. I think I would give it up for the Nigerian entertainment industry at this moment because there's concerts by Davido, and I think this is just a way of David coming back into the scene after that very tragic incident that happened in his family and all of that. But what I'm happy about today is that the kind of support he garnered yesterday from all over the world, all over the country, was massive. And I think that aren't working. There's more like a shutdown, a breakdown, a disconnect somewhere or the other, so I think that at this moment in our time, in our history as a country, people should be there for each other. People like David would always say, I just want to pick a little of his line. Find yourself. What difference are you making in your place of work, in your family? What extra value are you bringing to the lives of all the people? I was the other day I had a phone call, and when I picked up, in fact, immediately I saw the person that called. I was like, why is Moti calling me, right? Does she have a business for me or something? Because she hardly does. And surprisingly, when I picked up the phone, the first thing she said was, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fine. But because she's not like a regular, just bantering, and I'm in my heart, I'm like, go straight to the point, girl. I don't have time, And then she says, oh, I just called to check up on you. I was like, oh, really? He said, yes. So because it's been a while, I'm just checking up on my friends. I'm like, oh, I really do appreciate. Sometimes people go through a lot, and then we just need other people.
They have been doing well, especially when you're even talking about the financial remuneration that they bring into the country. Yeah, the economy is, thriving on one foot because our entertainers, they are putting in the A game in terms of their, their trade and everything. Davido's timeless concerts was one thing that I know I would say refreshing to the eye, especially like, for the fact that he had been out of the scene for quite a while, and having him back and come back really hard. Of course, he's been having a tour with the Timeless album in different parts of the world, and this was like unavailable.
Yeah.
It's already trending, so having it done their life and all of that, people will be driving to the beach and everything, and Nigerians always find a way, you know, to keep themselves alive in the midst of everything that is happening. And the entertainment industry in Nigeria has been one of those sectors that has given Nigerians an opportunity and something else to look out for in the midst of all the serious things that are going on. And not just Nigeria, Africa, you know, is also enjoying some goodness.
I told you we should jump on the unavailable challenge.
Oh, wow, me, I'm actually available. I'm actually
available.
Absolutely available for all the good things.
Anyway, you're unavailable for all of the bad energies and all of the negativity. So that's why you're unavailable, actually. Anyways, that was just on a lighter note. Let's go straight to our major stories for this morning. Of course, flash news. On the flash news this morning, we have that the president-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has been out of the country since March 21, will be returning to the country. Of course, he's been in France. He'll be returning to the country today. And just to, you know, put the healing process and tribunal cases, exactly 35 days to his inauguration on May 29, the president-elect Bola Tinubu will arrive in Nigeria today after a 1-month rest in France. Of course, he left the country for France on Tuesday, informed that the president-elect will arrive in the country today, the evening of today, barring any unforeseen circumstances. He also went ahead to say that as Siwaji is coming back on Monday, he will arrive Monday evening. And of course, and election season. Now, yeah, I remember that when he did this travel, right? A lot of Nigerians were like, is this what we are supposed to be seeing the president-elect do at this point in time? The elections are done and dusted, even though we have tribunal cases pending. But him traveling out of the country was not the, you know, right thing to do at that time. For some Nigerians, it was time to begin to plan governance, right? And then a lot of other people thought that, okay, his health is ailing, you know, and this is not the kind of person we want to rule us at this point in we are coming from with President Muhammadu Buhari and his administration. What, you know, will Nigerians hold on to that will not be experiencing the same occurrences for the Bola Ahmed Tinubu government?
Well, it's good to see that he's back. Given 35 days,
he will be back.
He'll be back.
Yes.
You know, this evening. You know, given like the 35-day window to his inauguration on May 29. And I think what's caught my attention in all of this is the fact that, you know, he's coming back to the country to hit and run with, you know, certain groundworks that needs to be done. Now we're talking about confronting the challenges of zoning of the National Assembly leadership. Formation of his big on is the healing process that the country needs to go through as a result of the just concluded election. So it's more like he's coming back to be hands-on on all of these processes. And I think something I'd really like to see what his, you know, his style of handling would be the National Assembly leadership, you know, calming that and deciding on what they're going to do, whether that's taking to the zoning or whatever. So that is something we're definitely at this time. Others are like, we are already here, let's do it once and for all.
I even think that the federal government has hit the ground running in terms of the fuel subsidy and, you know, palliatives to cushion the effect of the fuel subsidy, because as at yesterday, it was on the news that, you know, federal government has started paying increase in arrears, you know, 40% increase in arrears of salaries to workers, and you know, collecting the alerts to that regard. So I think that the whole process of the subsidy removal, the federal government has hit the ground running. But most importantly, let us see how the incoming administration will take it and swing into action. Will they remove it totally, or it will be in cure fuel subsidy? And you know, that I think that's the point where some Nigerians are of the opinion like there is nothing like a fuel subsidy, you know, because every administration comes on board and they are removing fuel subsidy, and some people are asking, when will this fuel subsidy removal actually come to an end?
It's more like it's always been an attempt to remove the fuel subsidy, and then we have a conversation, and Zainab Ahmed has continued to say this is going to be done by June, June, July. So with $100 million dollars borrowed for palliatives on
800
ground,
million?
$800 million, I beg your pardon, borrowed for palliatives, and the fact that they are waiting for the National Assembly to give accent for the palliative to get distributed. So there's more like a lot of groundwork on their end, but it does not still mean that there is no window of time where we can say, for instance, now the president-elect saying that let's not go ahead with that, because I mean him and his incoming more conversations around the president-elect from at least tomorrow.
Yeah,
meetings will start to flood. But then moving on from that particular flash story, Lagos State is coming under the floods again, and we've seen the flood take over Lagos community, and residents begin to lament about blocked drainages. Now residents of Alaji Idowu community in Okowojo in the Olumosho local government area, according to the residents, the blocked drainage affects free flow of water from various households in the area. Now, they said efforts by the community to address the challenge had been abortive when, he observed an observation was made about plastic, sand, and some particles blocking the channels created for the lack of free flow of water. Now, several people, some parts of Lagos have already started becoming impassable for, commuters. And we are talking about blocked drainages here. We already heard the Meteorological Agency of Nigeria highlight some states that are going to be hit by floods. And like we continue to say, the common expectation will be that the governments of these different states would have even gone back to doing the basic things as attending to drainages around the areas that will be most prone to this flooding, so and use all the apparatus at their disposal to make sure that drainages are cleared up ahead of the flooding that is going to come. It's not like it's news. Last year, Lagos was one of the worst hit with the floods. Why wait again for the rains to come? It should have been once the dry season came, the ministry, at least the water will find pathway to flow. First of all, before we talk about, okay, even the drainages are not enough to take the quantity of rains falling. But I think the rains are still giving us spacing in the way it's falling. If the state government in all of these places will swing into action immediately. And I think also that the Meteorological Agency should also find a way of, beyond giving the statistics, if they have a way of coming into affiliation with the state governments to make sure that drainages or all the works needed are implemented on time. I think it will also help beyond,
which is what they have continually done. So now the issue is, what has government done? What are the people doing? Because I was looking at this story yesterday, and going through some very interesting comments, like, why the next thing now, the people of this area, will be shouting, oh, government, government, government. But at night, they carry their trashes and dump into the drainages. So what are you expecting when you dump your your refuse into the drainage? What do you expect? You expect it to also just be the areas, dumping refuse into your drainages. What is the stench going to be doing to your health? We're not even talking about the flooding yet. Let's look at what the stench will cause in terms of health, issues. And then you find out that even when the rain comes, it washes into the major water bodies. Now, these are, I think that report also talked about, taking nylon sachet water, bottles and all of those things are more like indisposable. They don't wear off with time, and so all these things go to the major water bodies. And then what does it do to the aquatic life in the major water bodies? It destroys the aquatic life. So these issues are issues that causes it has more like ripple effects, you know, to human existence and all of that. But it's quite pitiable. Now, again, it takes us back to 2022 when we had like enormous flooding happen across the country, you know, where Lagos was one of those, you know, that was worst hit. We had Bayelsa Stage 2 experiencing a lot. Now, what between that time and now, I remember when we were trying to analyze the situation sometime last year, where we said that happen. Now, would we say that we did not learn our lesson in 2022? Would we say that we didn't learn our lessons? Would we say that we just sat down and felt like, okay, so all the water is dried now, life can go back to normal? We forget things too quickly in this country. And now look at what is happening in Lagos State. Oh, for crying out loud, a lot of people will be thronging to the mechanic workshop as of this morning to make sure that they fix their cars.
Not to forget that with the hike in everything in the economy, it's not even easy to maintain a vehicle. And then some of these other, you know, you see some of the brands in the water, they do not survive the hassle that they are going for. So you're seeing that also people are going to have to park their vehicles in this season and have to use public transport. So you're expecting that there's going to be a hike in transportation because transporters are going to try to leverage on the hike that they see. So it's just, you know, whichever way, both the citizens of the state across all the flood-prone states and, you know, the state governments to come together and put their hands, it's for your own good.
Definitely.
You know, when you start saying that, you know, ways that a community can check this. If we catch you, you know, disposing things at the wrong places, you need to be nabbed. We should get back to the days where you'll be given community service. You and your whole family go and clear the gutters. Yes, sure. These are the things that, you know, we need to start effecting so that we make progress. But this is already bad. Like I said, the rains are just starting now. They haven't even started coming in heavy torrent. It's not like it's raining 2 days at a stretch. When we get to that point, what would they now do in Lagos and all the other states alike? But these are the issues. Moving on from Lagos, May 29 is fast approaching. Dotting of I's, crossing of T's by the leading party is something that is most important at this time. I mean, the president-elect will be arriving later today, and I heard
Congress, and more like the PCC is saying a big thank you to President Muhammadu Buhari there, you know, for all the support he gave during and after the elections and all of that. Of course, we saw the Plateau State Governor Simon Bakola Long, who was the Director General, while James Falake was Secretary. And according to them, our great party APC has dissolved its Presidential Campaign Council PCC that was inaugurated last year to prosecute the 2023 presidential elections. According to them, the dissolution was contained in a statement jointly signed by the DG of the council, Governor Simon Lalong, and the Secretary. Of course, they are also saying a big thank you there to President Muhammadu Buhari for all that he has done. I remember very well, that the president was part of campaigns. He went to several states at some point where, you know, someone like Rufai saying that, oh, there was some kinds of internal issues in the presidency that wanted to stall, you know, the ambition of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and all of that. But we can't remember exactly if the president did the 10 states that he promised he was going to do. But again, we saw him being very active, you know, or rather the APC family is also very grateful for all that the president did at the time, you know, concerning the campaigns and the general elections put together.
Well, it's good to see that we are moving on from, you know, all of these issues. Now, the APC campaign council led by, you know, the president-elect now, say, because he's the man at the helms right now. You know, they think that the president himself, thank you to who was no, that was Akwa Ibom. I thought they were saying thank you to the president's wife, but then it's good to see that they appreciate his endeavor with regards to the election. Like, he continued to promise that the legacy he wants to leave behind is free, fair, credible election when Nigerians voted in the person that they want. Like we said last week, he continues to applaud himself that he has done that for the country. And the APC has been re-elected into, you know, governance for the next 4 years. I mean, they might as well applaud the lead man in the country who is handing over to them, which means he had, put certain groundworks in place for them to be able to come back as still the ruling party for the next 4 years. So I think another important thing is the fact that this PCC Council too has been dissolved, and thank yous have been said just so that they can re-navigate their energy into rather towards the May 29 inauguration that is coming. And also on the heels of this is the fact that the president-elect Asiwaju boys of the PCC are going to find themselves in his cabinet, because I mean, if they work effectively as PCC members, you can just expect that some of them would do great as cabinet members. So this is the reason why we're saying, okay, let's not put our energy on all of that. That phase of work is done. We dissolve that and let's move on, and let's know the hands that we're going to be taking on to the next level of things.
Yeah, definitely. So that's it for the ABC family. But more importantly, this morning, our major story, which is something that causes some kind of worry, is the war that is happening in Sudan. A lot of concern. I know that it also affects the whole world because, of course, when you talk about nations, you talk about the fact that whatever happens in a particular nation will definitely have its effects, good or bad, across the world as well. I know that there's been a lot of calls from the situation where Sudan was supposed to, hand over power democratically to a democratic government, and it's not happening as well. But the major concern here is how this is affecting other nationals, other foreign nationals across the world. And Nigeria seems to be in the mix of all of this. And so we saw that the president worried over thousands of citizens stuck in troubled Sudan due to the dangers posed to air travel in North African countries. Now, this is also I don't know how I feel about this particular story, because as of yesterday, a lot of foreign nationals, foreign countries have been airlifting their nationals out of the troubled Sudan, and as we speak, Nigerians are trapped in there. And the federal government, according to a tweet by Shehu Sani now, Garba Shehu, I beg your pardon, who is one of the media aides to the president, is saying that the Nigerian government has been having sleepless nights following the ongoing crisis in Sudan. Our officials are doing a lot, coordinating with the embassy in Khartoum, the Sudanese and Ethiopian government, trying to ensure the safety of the large numbers of our citizens there. Our own taking forever to happen. And at some point, the Nigerian government is also praying, let there just be a ceasefire so that, we don't even have to go airlift our nationals from that country.
The issue with this particular conversation is, although some foreign countries are airlifting their citizens, some of the bigger weights in the world aren't, because the explanation is we don't usually go into countries because there's a war and lift our citizens. For instance, the United States is not repatriating its citizens in Sudan. They just gave a notice. Make sure you stay at home. Just avoid, the crisis-prone areas. If you have
That's what the federal government is telling the Nigerian students.
Exactly, but what I'm saying is so that we don't, bring up too much problems where there isn't. Because, for instance, let's not even forget that the president, on coming back to the country, the crisis is in Sudan. It's easy for you to say that the federal government, needs to go bring back the citizens from the country. But how it's not like it's just a matter of, get into the country and get your citizens out. There's a need for a lot of negotiations. Yes, you need to find your way to the embassy, find their way to the airport that will be designated for the movement. So there is actually a lot. And at this point, I feel like I'm going to stay with Garba Shehu that says the federal government is having a sleepless night. It might actually be the situation of things. But the likes of US, UK, Germany, and the rest, of course, their diplomats have been evacuated. But in terms of, you're talking diplomats because these are like people they sent on assignment to the country. But US nationals that just went there on their own accord, they have not been evacuated. They just say, make sure you stay out of crisis area. If there's an issue, get to the embassy. And, if it's in a situation where it's more serious, then we will think of what to do. So it's not like, once a war breaks out in the country, the next thing the federal government of these countries decide to do is quickly evacuate
when
their
we put
people.
it side by side with the enormosity of how this war is going to, don't you think that the life of those, in our nationals that are in
immediately, but as long as we are, we know the fact that they are getting something done, I think that's a good one for now.
Anyways, just in now is that the federal government is making preparations to evacuate about 5,500 stranded Nigerians out of Sudan through the Egyptian town of Luxor. Of course, it was gathered that the federal government was seeking Egypt's support so that the stranded Nigerians could be moved to Luxor. The director of special duties of the National Emergency Management Agency, who said the federal government was meeting with government officials in Egypt on how to move Nigerians out of Sudan. So obviously efforts are being made. It's more like a welcome development in that regard, that efforts are being made. There are other routes that the government can actually use to airlift. There is going to be a ceasefire actually.
Several countries are calling for ceasefire at this time, but it's just for the two factions that are fighting to decide that, this should rest. And I think more worrisome is the fact that nations are looking for how to move and stabilize their democracy, but yet we're having two military factions fighting to keep their nation off from the democratic path. It's a problem at this point, but we do hope that we can, as a matter of fact, bring back Nigerians that are stuck there. The efforts of the federal government are being recognized, and we do hope that, of course, it experiences fruition and more people come on the staples of Rise and Shine. Of course, our national dailies are on standby also. There's a lot of conversation we need to have, so do stay with us.
Spectrum TV, to improve life safety.
A very good morning to you and welcome to your morning news brief on Spectrum, live from Uyo. I am Mary Joseph. We begin this morning from the national scene where the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Oyema, has disclosed that the country has concluded arrangements to evacuate over 5,500 Nigerians stranded in Sudan by road. Speaking with newsmen, Oyema stated that his ministry has been informed that an estimated 5,500 citizens, which included students, workers and others, have indicated rescue team in Sudan. Away from that, the Inspector General of Police, Akali Baba Ahmed, has ordered the team investigating the embattled Resident Electoral Commissioner, REC, in Adamawa State, Barrister Hudu Yunusa Ari, to expedite action. Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Dejobi said the letter from the INEC had details the alleged impropriety of the actions of Yunusa Ari during the April 15 supplementary elections in Adamawa State and calling on the police to investigate and probably prosecute the REC for his actions. To Education, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, JAM, has said it would continue the registration of direct entry DE until after the conduct of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination and the National Census. JAM spokesman Fabian Benjamin disclosed this in a statement, saying all candidates desirous of the DE registration will not be denied the opportunity to register, provided the claimant and their families from Khartoum, Sudan. Reports say the operation was fast and clean, adding that no fewer than 100 people were reportedly evacuated yesterday when 3 Chinook helicopters landed near the U.S. Embassy to collect them. Meanwhile, the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs has announced it will also be evacuating citizens and nationals from the other EU and allied countries. And finally, in sport, West Ham defeats Bournemouth 4-0 to reach 13th on Premier League table. West Ham took it home from Aaron Caswell, cornered from the opener at Vitality Stadium. Lucas Paqueta scored another header, getting one of the end of a deep cross from Vladimir Kofel, as West Ham scored twice in the opening 12 minutes. We'll have details of these stories and more in our news at 12. I'm Mary Joseph. Let's head back to Rise and Shine where we have Janice and Uyai on standby. Do have a wonderful morning.
State and government, Secretary General, delegates.
This was the Lagos Nigeria for Spectrum TV to improve life safety.
Welcome back. This is still Rise and Shine, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Topical issues, great matters arising out of the country is what we usually bring to bear on the show. Of course, Mary Joseph brought us tidbits of global news, and just before we went on that particular news detail, we saw the fact that the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu will be arriving Nigeria this Monday evening from his 1 month long France holiday. And also we saw the fact that Lagos State in some areas have started experiencing the flood hit them rigorously as a result of blocked drainages, as some of the residents in Lagos cried out. One other information that we saw this morning is the fact that the PCC of the APC has been dissolved, just so that they can put more attention on the 29 May inauguration coming up. Those are some of the things we've already had a conversation about. One sure way to catch up on all that conversation is to be following us across all social media platforms. You can find all that at SpectrumTv.ng.
Absolutely correct. Drop a message if you want to drop a message, and all that you think about some of these stories that we have for us this morning. Of course, Daily Spotlight is what's coming up next. Of course, one of my, I would say, best segments of the show, and share their opinion, and have their say and voices heard as well. So let's find out what the papers have for us this morning. A whole lot of stories repleted on the front pages of our national dailies this morning. And we are going to be starting first with the Nation newspaper. Of course, we have it that Nigerian students lament ordeal in crisis-torn Sudan. That's the major story there. And the writer says it's dangerous to evacuate over 5,500 citizens without I'm not seeing the writings, but federal government is saying that. And then we also have US, UK, France, Russia move out nationals by Niger Delta leaders. And then we have that Nnamani ask Obi to discontinue petition. Another story, building collapses in Lagos. You can get these stories on page 7. And we also have the 3 ways out of debt crisis by Ruane. That's more like an article there for the federal government to look out for. 3 ways out of debt crisis. And 40% pay rise excites federal President Muhammadu Buhari administration, actually. And that's all the stories that we have on the front page of the Nation newspaper this morning.
Okay, we'll move straight now and look at the Punch newspaper, and the big story there is still on Sudan conflict. Government seeks Egypt's support to rescue 5,500 Nigerians by road. Federal government warns as Nigerian students pay $100 for dangerous road. We are waiting for Sudanese government to provide safe corridor for evacuation, says minister. We also see here Nigeria's indebtedness to World Bank now 6 trillion naira. We also have here manhunt for fleeing Adamawa wreck. Okay. We also have here Tinubu may return today to meet APC NWC. 2 children, 5 others burnt to death in Lagos-Ibadan highway crash. That's such a sorry story. LASG blames developers as another 3-story building collapses. Those are all the stories on the front page of the Punch.
Okay, we take another paper now. Let's see, in Lagos, Kanu. And the rider says 12 killed, 20 injured in auto crash boat mishap. You can find details of that story on page 4. Moving on, 2.9 million lightning strike at Ibadan police barracks collapse. The rider says 2 cars, 5 generators, 3 motorcycles destroyed. Page 5 is where you get details of that story. Direct entry registration to continue after 2023 UTME national census, says JAM. Page 28 is where you get that from. Vatsa, APC chieftain to Buhari, ask God, not Nigerians, for forgiveness. Wrong committed by INEC. That's from MBF. He should just go to Yakasaya. Those are the riders on that particular story there. But moving forward, APC dissolves Tinubu Shatima campaign cancel. And the rider says Namani urges Obi to withdraw case against Tinubu. And that you can get on page 8 and 26 of the Daily Sun. Ofili denies inviting Gowon, appoints 75-member inauguration committee. Page 28 is where you get that story from. And then the last story here says work for Kanu's release. IPOP tells new Ohaneze boss Iwayamu. Page 26 is where you get that.
The big story there says Obi meets Muslims, says Nigeria is one, only divided by politics. Of course, there's a picture story there. Eid al-Fitr, Obi celebrates with Muslims in Onitsha. Okay, declares he's never discriminated against anyone on religion basis. Blower queries exclusion of Igbo from Tinubu's inauguration committee. Says it's signpost marginalization, lack of vision. APC dissolves presidential campaign council. Okay, Falake confirms Tinubu's return today, mobilizers welcome. Decade of Gas, NCDMB advocates annual reporting of implementation status. NMDPRG, amid global dynamics, economic trade alliances crucial for Nigeria's prosperity. We also can see here the federal government pledges to evacuate Nigerians back home from Sudan within the next 2 days. Okay, those are all the stories that we have on the front page of this day newspaper.
Okay, our very last paper will be the Vanguard newspaper, and the Vanguard newspaper says the big story: over 30 taxes choke industries in Nigeria. That's global competitiveness. Over 30 taxes choke industries in Nigeria. And the writer says 17 bills on more levies pending in National Assembly, taxes above global average of 22.37%, SMEs lose 9% of yearly income, stakeholders chart way forward. And we also have federal government failed woefully on security. You can get that story on page 10. That's a comment. We have APC dissolves presidential campaign cancel. Another story here says 52 billion SWP fund, Atiku's aid, Keyamo, blocker over asset declaration. Okay. Beaker rather over assets generation. More stories on the Vanguard newspaper now. Zamfara reinstates Emir, the throne for Tabanin bandits leader. And then we have that Sudan war, Nigerians' only way out is evacuation by road, says the federal government. 10th National Assembly, Batara Wase Jaji in 3-horse race for speakers. How having in the country. But I think that's just all the papers, all the stories that we have on the front line of our national dailies this morning. Quite interesting stories, I must say, you know, across all the national dailies today. And a number of them are quite interesting. Of course, we see that's one major story, just like we talked about, you know, earlier. And I'm wondering the distance between Sudan and Nigeria. How is that possible? Is that not also going to, you know, make them prone to some dangers on the road and all of that through Egypt and all of that. It's
I
quite.
think
It's quite a
primarily it might
distance.
to be to just first of all evacuate them from Sudan
Yeah.
by road to a
To a
a
neighboring
country, yeah,
country.
that is
Okay.
more stable, and then they can fly them out
Fly
from
them
there.
out from there.
Maybe the airspace is navigate. So that's why I was saying we can't just jump on that whole initiative, because it's going to take a process. Like the front pages of the papers have also said, they are waiting for the Sudan government to even tell them this is a corridor you can use to evacuate your citizens. So there's a lot of intricacies involved, but we do hope that it ends in the best interest of Nigerians that are trapped in Sudan at this time.
Yeah, definitely.
But of course, federal government has said within 2 days.
2 days.
Hopefully we should get some good news by Wednesday.
Okay, so another problem is, or rather another challenge that will be there is eventually if those people are repatriated back home, what arrangements have been made on ground to be able to reintegrate them back into society. We saw what happened with the Ukraine students, Nigerians that were students in Ukraine and all of that. So it's one thing to evacuate them back home. It's another thing to arrange or put things in place to reintegrate them back into society, because these people are coming, leaving their businesses in Sudan and all of that. So it's not a matter of the
million people living below poverty, 46% plus Nigerians unemployed. Nigeria cannot help those returning from Sudan. They will just have to find a way to integrate back into society. First of all, by themselves, of course. The country can't even help those that are here. Talk less of helping those that they brought back. You know how many people that Nigeria has been bringing back only in this year that have been stuck in different countries or fleeing crisis in different places? Once you just get home and you can find your way to your father's house, you will find what to do. Because, I mean, it's the country that we live in. It's the reality of day. If you say 133 million people are already trying this hard to bring back, citizens stuck in Sudan, it's a great one done by the federal government. They need to be appreciated. Beyond there, do not expect too much. Really.
Okay, so we'll leave it at what Uyai has said.
Really?
Beyond that, do not expect too much from a government that is still struggling to even find amenities and facilities and make life more comfortable for even the citizens.
You probably will just quickly put them on the 5,000 palliative coming from subsidy removal. So.
But this is just to let you know that, of course, you can be a part of our conversation this morning. The phone lines are open. Do well to call us and give us your... Actually, came on the front pages of the papers where I think, where am I seeing that? Is it on the Punch now? Okay, Punch newspaper, where it says police launch manhunt for fleeing Adamawa wreck.
Oh, yeah.
Quite interesting story. Of course, we are not forgetting Aisha Binani in Adamawa State, and the role that the INEC wreck in Adamawa State UNUSA actually played in all of that. And remember also that sometime last week the president was he has to be suspended that. And I remember saying that Nigerians are very particular about this story because it's all about elections, and we are waiting to see the outcome of all of the probe and the prosecution process therein. But surprisingly, we are hearing that UNUSA is nowhere to be found.
Oh yes, since last week, UNUSA has been on the run, like he wasn't. So I'm even surprised that it's now that the police, thankfully the police has gotten on it. Like we said, once we saw that the president came back into the country, it's more like he gave form and shape to all of that supplementary drama in Adamawa State. So we know that the police is also going to try to exonerate themselves in the midst of all of this, because of course the president had also asked them to probe into the CP that was redeployed to another state as the days go by. But more things happening on the front pages of our national dailies. Okay, I think we even have a call. We just take that
first call.
All right. Hello, good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Sonny. I'm calling from Benin.
Sammy from Benin. Good morning.
Thank you very much. To be honest with you, don't forget the issue of Mina. When they talked about his arrest, he was nowhere to be found. And we're not going to continue like this. Data, all the plans that federal government has spoken to Nigeria about, that this is what they will do, that one will call crime, that one will call snatching of vehicle. No one has worked. That is because we do not have data that we can rely on. Don't forget, in this country, road safety came out with a conviction that they need to have this move from the old number plate to the online number plate, that with that new number plate, nobody will fall. At the end of the day, they came out with BVN, that once you have BVN, the issue of theft and all that will be dealt with. Nigerians suffer for several months to go queue up in the bank to get BVN. At the end of the day, where we are still there. They came out with NIN, where we are. The issue of insecurity, a transfer of money, paying ransom to kidnapper making calls, they are all still there, no one has changed. Why am I adding all this one to the conversation? Is the fact that you cannot get the man who illegally announced results that he was not supposed to. It's not that he's a novice. It's not that he's a new man. It's not that he's a new employment. This man knows the process. He deliberately did that. The commissioner of police in that state, in Adamawa state, is job function, because this is the problem I have. I have worked in the private sector. You are given a job description guard. You have your work procedure guard. When they deploy the commissioner of police to stop that man from not making that result, was it part of the job, or it was supposed to ensure that there was peace in that environment? I think what we need to do, we need to begin to let our police know their job function. Because I watched that live video. When the other man was saying, fear Allah, fear Allah, fear Allah, you are fasting. The police officers were there. They didn't say anything. But at the time that they wanted to drag the man's dress, you saw the police officer reacted. That showed that they all know their job while they were there. Whoever expected that the INEC rep will come inside there to come and announce with a piece of paper. Who will stop an INEC? Who is the INEC commissioner officer in that state? So I think let us not you cause a man does something wrong. You are not trying to hope at it being responsible.
I think at this point we'll just take a very short breather, and when we come back, we'll be looking at something different. But of course, we might still just have to open the lines for Nigerians to have their contributions as to, you know, some very pertinent issues being raised on the papers this morning. But very quickly, we say thank you to Sonny. By the way, let's take a breather, and we'll be back shortly.
Business exists only to meet the needs of the people, but there's an extra advantage if your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors. For your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Relationships, organizations thrive, and how long they stick together. Join Uyai Anyekan on Connect every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. and on Sunday 2:30 to 3 p.m. on channel 421 on StarTimes to catch all the conversations, interviews, real stories, and how to navigate relationships and family life in the 21st century. Real people, real faces, real stories. Connect.
They have informed, educated, and entertained us. When you needed information, knowledge, or an escape.
From generation to generation, the Nigerian broadcasting industry has worked tirelessly to serve you.
And now, this service will finally be recognized.
Come May 17th this year, broadcasters all over Nigeria will gather at the Hotel and Suite House on 20th April and ends on 4th May 2023. Visit www.tnbawards.ng to vote now. They've served and they're still serving. It's time we say thank you. This award is organized by the Broadcasting Organizations of Nigeria, Bonn.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution.
Oh, my Lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary procedure? I think I will be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa, its sacred truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Welcome back. This is still Rise and Shine, and we're beaming live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. Several conversations have already been had on the show this morning, but we want to navigate our attention. Most administrations in the country as of now are winding up. 8 years, some people have been in the saddle of leadership in various states in the country and even the Federal Republic at the presidency. We're going to be looking at the infrastructural development of the Udemimano-led administration in Akwa Ibom State. Several conversations to be had around this. Of course, at the advent of his administration, he was one person who pushed for conversation with us on set this morning. Is an erudite speaker, a barrister, Barrister Clifford Thomas, who himself is the coordinator, Akwa Ibom State Human Rights Community. He's, of course, a human rights crusader, a journalist.
Good morning. I want to say a very pleasant morning to you and to viewers out there. And say, please, let's latch on our seatbelt and see how best we can go. And your contributions will be very key also in assessing how far the Udom administration has done.
Again, as for an 8-year term, he made mention of a completion agenda. And in Nigeria here, when we talk about politics, we talk about governors, coming into administration. They tell you that their first 4 years, they use it for trial and error. So most times it's not completely counter. Nigerian governor to start 4 years and do all that he says he's going to be doing in that first 4 years. There's always a completion, agenda for the next 4 years. Now the government also, mapped out 8 areas to focus the efforts of this particular administration. They talked about industrialization, just like Ria has said, aviation development, rural and riverine area demonstration when we talk about his second term. But how far have we gone? How far would we say that this particular administration have gone in terms of fulfilling these promises? We have barely 35 days to, handing.
It never really promised some of the things it is doing right now. Development is a holistic thing. And let me go back to what you said about the first 4 years being years of trial and error. First 4 years of trial and error, they wouldn't have achieved anything. So you hit the ground running from the first day. The first 100 days, what have you achieved? So your administration should be tied to an achievement quotient, an achievement ratio. If you don't tie it to an achievement quotient or ratio, you have only merely planned to fail. Aviation development. Aviation development came, I wouldn't say as an afterthought. I would think it came as what extraneous factors brought to bear with the internal thing they thought to do. Yes, the regular thing is all infrastructural development, agriculture, and I wouldn't think it has done well in agriculture, despite the fact that he claimed it has done his best, that he has done his best in agriculture for 200 naira. And how many cups of garri are we buying today at 200 naira? So you must do a monitoring and evaluation system to know that every injectable fund you put in to any sector will get value for money. Well, I think one of the problems has been lack of proper and adequate supervision. Some persons who were appointed into places just felt that they've been patronized for whatever political this thing they brought to bear, political contribution they brought to bear on the government. So if we were to do a sector by sector analysis, some sectors will perform better. Some you promise garri.
But then we have that rice mill in Ona. So we are also talking about
Ona rice mill.
Okay, no, sorry, that's the flour mill. So we want to break it down.
Corner.
Yes, so you're talking about, you know, sector by sector. So I think that will also help and drive our conversation, because if we say, your investment in agriculture, like you said, what's the output? When we look at industrialization, there was a move by the Udom Emmanuel administration to do, let's build a semi-refinery for coconut here, you know.
Government has no business in business.
Okay.
You just create a level playing field, you create the enabling environment, and you empower your people to grow materials. The government made efforts to plant coconut, but how many stands of coconut will give us how many coconuts that we can put in the process? Have we started investing from there? No. So this is something that we'll say, okay, fine. Government is a continuum. After all, Udom Emmanuel came in and completed some of the things left over by the other government. So you laid the foundation. Obong Atta laid the foundation for the airport. And it was about 88% complete because he had paid for several items that were on the high seas, somewhere at Tinkan Island port that had not been cleared. And what's his name? Gosola Kwabio came. He said he met the airport at about 35% completion. And then he shot up the gap. The airport is functioning today. So there would have been nothing wrong in Udom Emmanuel coming to say, I am laying the foundation for this to take off. By the time it takes off, this, leave it on paper, lay the foundation for what you have to do, what ought to be done, and go on. So the completion agenda, from my understanding, was not to come and complete everything started. It was actually to complete what was in the continuum of government, which were left over. He will complete all of them. No, I don't see him doing that. The Nsadatai or Kobo road will not be completed. Even if we wish it, I don't think it will be completed. There are a couple of other projects, but to be honest and fair to Udom Emmanuel, he has started something. Whether he started it well or not, let whoever is coming in complete it well.
Okay, so it brings us to, you know, the whole industrialization drive that was much talked about in this particular administration. And if you check the National Bureau of Statistics, there was, a statistics as to how many unemployed people are in Akwa Ibom State. I think 51% of young people in Akwa Ibom State are still unemployed. Let's even look at industrialization drive of this particular administration. Would we say that they have done well? How many young people have they taken off the streets? How many people would we say that this particular administration have actually gainfully employed?
In the past 7 years, how many persons are churned out by our secondary schools every year? How many persons are churned out by the tertiary institutions? The University of Uyo, the Akwa Ibom University, Akwa Ibom College of Education, Polytechnic, some other private institutions. It's nothing less than 8,000. No, it's nothing less than 20,000. When you count secondary school, WAEC takers, and all of that. No, it's so how many of this has the government been able to absorb? The public service, we actually have less than 2% of the population in the public service. As a percent of 7 million is 70,000. 2% is 140,000. How many persons do we have in the Akwa Ibom State public service? Actually less than 30,000. If it's up to 30,000, it can be more than 40,000. So we actually have less than 2%, about 1% of the population. So about 80% of the income of the state goes into servicing only 2% of the population in terms of salary, emoluments, and the rest, outside of money to employ and cannot employ. But for the government to go in to say that we're building industries, toothpick, is it still on?
Yes, it's still on. It should be.
Toothpick.
Yes, it's one of the things.
Should be.
It's part of the things that were commissioned in this administration in the last 8 years.
I am asking a question as of today. Is the toothpick factory still on? You may not know. What are the other factories? The car assembly plant. Has it produced any car yet?
It hasn't.
You don't know. There's several other things. They are employed in all those ventures. And where are those persons today? If we have to be honest with ourselves, and if Mr. Udom Emmanuel listened to his critics and worked with his critics, because they are afraid, the government is afraid of deserves people who tell him the truth.
So indirectly, you're trying to say that none of these factories that have been brought in by the Udom Emmanuel administration is working, and it hasn't also achieved the objective that it was set to achieve.
I am not trying to say that.
You're saying that?
I am not trying to say. I am actually saying with empirical facts, the governor came in, he meant well, the vigor, the energy he put into the drive was so much that you think is an international thing. But you go, the pencil manufacturing factory, how many of those pencils are still on? I would have expected that with the Minister of Education, the Minister of Education should be off-takers of the product of the pencil factory. Then our restaurant will produce more and employ more people to produce. You don't need to be Harvard trained or Oxford trained to know this thing. Anybody from Akpanande market, Ita market, Uyo market, can run the economy of this state excellently well. But when you come in and begin to think that these are all local people who may not know elected by Udom Emmanuel, we'll sit him down and tell him the truth. Stop agreeing with those who are making capital gains from the governor's projects and the rest to say this is this, this is. No. We need to tell the governor the truth. Okay, and when you tell the governor the truth, they mark you as an opposition, as those who don't wish the governor well. But we are those who love the governor. We love the governor more than his commissioners and those who are working with him.
I think something you said that is very, pungent is the fact that, like you rightly, asked, most of those industries have been initiated but did not have the capacity to be running fully. Because, for instance, for a couple of months, the syringe manufacturing company was running. So when you bring these industries in and you say, the toothpick manufacturing will be able to employ at least 1,005 people. So far, so good. How many people has it been able to employ? The prospects that these things came with, did they leave out any of them? Would you think that, they were lofty promise, mental strides so that it would be better welcomed, by the people? So I'm looking at where do we stand now as a state? Because this continues to be the question, come and show me where these things.
Good, lofty idea, beautiful. But where are the toothpicks? Pencil manufacturing factory, where are the pencils? All the projects Governor Udom Emmanuel initiated, very good project. There would have been maybe he was afraid of what the people will say, because whether he's doing something good or bad, the people look for people who will not say you are taking my brother, you are taking my sister for employment. Bring the best hand. That's why Bola Ahmed Tinubu, different places, different states, once he discovers that you have the golden touch, the Midas touch to things, he brings you in. He doesn't care whether you have opposed. Tinubu is collecting taxes. His company is collecting taxes in so many states. Why? Because he went with a touch of excellence and brought the best hands he could find. Now, at commercial ventures, and you bring it, what do you want? Look at your objective. The objective of this firm is to manufacture so quantity of toothpick, and the off-takers will be there. We have a ready market. And the ones who will also understudy the experts. You pay the experts very well and tell them, we have a moratorium for 3 years. You help us manage it and run this business to this point for 3 years. People from Ona to work in the place. And they are very good, and the objective of the business is achieved. Why not? You leave in fact, if we talk of industrialization, I may not be very charitable with my figures, with my scores. We go to, did we talk of agriculture?
Yes, we talked about agriculture.
No, you can do it elsewhere. If you're not has valleys, those valleys, one of the ways to sustain those valleys from crumbling, from becoming gully erosion, very terrible erosion, is to plant cashew nut. The root of cashew nut holds the soil very well. And you make provision for the export of cashew nut, of the processing of it. Yeah, offer, but this government denied itself of that privilege.
I like the fact that you say you don't want to give ideas. Of course, your ideas will be bought.
They are for sale. My ideas are for sale.
Definitely.
I don't advise.
Marred a lot of administrations in Nigerian politics is wastage. Now, this has been like a serious concern to the people of Akwa Ibom State, because putting side by side the federal allocation of Akwa Ibom State with some of the things that this particular administration have said that they have. We're not even talking about, you know, the
derivation
13% derivation fund that was said was paid.
Did you say 104 billion or
that's
264 billion?
Oh wow, for 2023, I guess.
No, I thought you were talking
1999 on up to date 13% derivation. We put that side by side with some of the achievements that this particular administration have said that they have achieved. Would we say that this is more like waste, or would say that it commiserates with what they have done so far?
I have not had the privilege of assessing all the projects and juxtaposing same with the figures that came in, the monies that came in. But honestly, in all the projects, the government from the project, they sat in government house and brought one big man from Kanafo and asked the man, what do we do for your people? The people, the big man never went to consult with his people. So if you consult with your people and do a project, you are not doing the people a favor. You are merely servicing. The projects the government has put in place have been sabotaged. Despite the fact that the governor is doing his best to try to push things, get things done, they've been sabotaged. Because the governor's first fault is that he didn't make the people own the project.
So why do they have to sabotage his efforts?
Because you are not the owner. Now they put street light in your street. You are not bothered about whether the street light works or not. But once some people see that like a decidal attitude, will choose to go and vandalize it.
That's not the government's problem. Rather, it's the problem of the citizens.
No. It's the government's problem.
I bring street lights to your street.
How did you bring it? Did you consult me? Did you tell me? Did you make me own the system so that I can provide security? Every project the government put in place without consultation of the people is open to sabotage, because it was Masmuro that said a product you don't know its use, abuse is inevitable. So it's been abused, and that's the concept. I am saying, if you are to give me drinking water,
and gives you drinking water, the government must have identified that drinking water is a problem.
How?
Because there are different outcries from different communities.
There's something called the needs assessment. Did you conduct a needs assessment? After the needs assessment, did you conduct an EIA to know whether I am even afraid of the product of the EIA, of the environmental impact assessment of the project you want to give me? And say the project will cost flood to submit them, that nobody shall vandalize this project. It is your project. We finish, hand over to you, not hand over to the government.
So I think some of the problems here we're also looking at in this administration is the fact that, yes, they made attempts to develop, some areas, but then they did not bring those developmental strides to meet the particular need of the people. Of course, there's also accusations as to the fact that most of these attempts to develop was,
Agree.
Okay.
On two fronts.
All right.
One, you want to bring a project to a community in Uyo, and the people say no. And the project is time-bound. And people in Ona, a community in Ona, say, please, we need it. When they say we need it, it means they will provide security. It means they will own the project. And you notice that it is easier for you to do it there. Why don't you do it there? You see the Nigerian football team. If they are doing well, I won't fight against it. Federal character at times spoil things. So I support Mr. Odom Emmanuel to take projects to wherever the people will accept and work with him and make sure that the construction process is not sabotaged. The production and the process itself that works there is not sabotaged. It's not every community human project. Some communities may have a very terrible opinion about, oh, this is our opportunity to also eat the national cake. They catch the contractor and say, you blame the government? I would say no. If you put projects in a place which has been accepted. I don't think it is nepotism. It's far different from nepotism. It is the acceptability of the project, but do people actually accept those projects? Give us a project that will protect it. Number two, development is people-oriented. You don't sit down in your office and assume that I need water. People are mounting boreholes everywhere, and you are saying, I have borehole in my house, and you want solar street light. And so we need that one. When it's late at night, now that PHED does not give people power, you now put the solar street light comes up, and it will be our duty to protect it. You don't send contractors to come and do things and assume that that's what we want. No.
Rounding up and handing over, to a new government. Of course, the transition process has kick-started and all of that. But let's look at I like the fact that you've said politics or government or, and I remember also that, the incoming governor has also said that, he will continue to, latch on Governor Dom Emmanuel as his big brother and his mentor in the job. Now, let's see how far that can go.
Governor Udom Emmanuel's administration.
That's what we always think. No. That's what we always think. And that's why most Nigerians
why
say
don't
that,
you allow me to talk? I gave you opportunity to
let me just say this.
Okay.
Say that, when a particular governor brings in a successor, it's a pseudo government. But at some point, we see that.
Let me show you what you may not see. I'm in the field.
Okay. As
a journalist, as a lawyer, as an actor, as a development consultant, I'm in the field. Udom's administration, once Miss Umoina is, I will continue with both the success and failure of Udom Emmanuel. And you are sitting down here to say they will fight. Do you know
I'm not saying that they will fight.
Do you know the kind of understanding they had? When men meet to discuss politics, they drink some bottles of understanding, which you may not know. You can attribute it to whatever thing you call. But that bottle of understanding brings a strong affinity between them. So if you are to continue, you continue. After all, Mr. Udom Emmanuel did not elect of the state. So, pending the outcome and determination of pending suits at the tribunal and at the courts, Mr. Moino may become the governor actually sworn in on May 29, or may not. I speak of facts alone. You look at the law. The law will determine that. I told them some time ago that the politicians are playing into the hands of the courts, and the courts are going to decide who becomes governor or whoever. So they should be very careful about that fact, because once it gets to court, you don't know who will win. Mr. Moino becomes governor. He will continue with aviation development. His own personal, this aside from him, he was going to build more hotels in the States. But I think the priority may not be very proper. If it takes civil society, the civil society, the Akwa Ibom human rights community is in touch with funders in Belgium to see how monies could be gotten for the state government, so that the incoming governor, whoever is governor, we are here, and we're taking it to Kaduna State now, because there's no opening in Akwa Ibom for us to do it for Akwa Ibom. This Kaduna State governor-elect has asked us to come. So we'll go there and show him how to do it. So within the fact, that's what the governor of Osun State did, that he was able to clear all salary areas, pensioners and all of that, within his first 100 days. And we are saying it's possible in Akwa Ibom. It will pain my heart that the government is not interested in it.
To them?
Yes, we have.
To the incoming administration?
I said we have. We have. If they don't, they should be listening to this program. If they don't take that off, and then we take it to Kaduna. At least we are sure we have open discussion with the incoming governor of Kaduna State. And he has asked us, please, 10%. I think I mentioned that to you last time. 13% of the gross national, of the domestic product of Cross River State was funded by openings by CM. You don't waste money. See, if whoever comes in as governor must not run the government of Akwa Ibom as a civil service entity. They must look at what are the profit margin. How will it help and benefit our people?
And let's all look a little bit into his Arise blueprint. He says we are going to look into agriculture, revolutionize education, different things under the Arise blueprint. What do you think?
There's a difference between the script. What you write is the letter. There's a spirit behind every letter. If you are not the one that originated the concept, you cannot attach a spirit to it. Because if you had said manifesto, I would have said no political party runs a manifesto in this country. They are all businessmen who they are involved in marketing, not even salesmanship. Now, so the blueprint, all those beautiful things, they have not finished the first 4 years. By the second year, we would have completed all of this. And those errors, those terrible lies against the people must stop.
All right.
The people must rise up to hold them accountable. There must be transparency and sales. We will be waiting.
All right.
Because we are going to give you advice and tell you what to do. If you don't do them, we will internationalize the fight.
All right. Would we take that as your last words because our time is up?
Well, let the people, time is up now.
Yes.
I want to encourage the people, please be on the lookout. Feed us with those facts. We will process the facts and ask relevant questions. Don't fail to ask relevant questions. Once you ask those questions, the people will be, if they didn't do well, they'll be in a hurry. And
Barrister Clifford Thomas, lawyer and coordinator of Akwa Ibom State Human Rights Community.
Akwa Ibom Human Rights Community.
Akwa Ibom right from 7 up until this moment. We'll see you again tomorrow when we bring you another edition of Rise and Shine Daily.
In their contributions, a big thank you to you. Thank you to the production team. My name is Uyai Anek, and let's do this again tomorrow. We do hope that you enjoy the rest of your holiday today.